In this video, it's going to be the start of a series of amateur radio and CB radio repair and the tools that you pretty much need. And today we're looking at one of the most basic but overlooked tools that some amateur radio technicians and CB radio technicians fail to use. And what I mean by fail to use or have is that they'll go ahead and spend thousands on gears. I mean, some people go crazy, but yet they're not willing to pay the $100, $200 for a good dummy load. And what they'll do is they'll go and test their gear or whatever over the air. Like today, I was working on an HF transceiver, and that's what made me decide to do this video. And all I just kept hearing was a guy every so often going testing, testing. And you can hear the fans going in the background, so I'm assuming he probably was working on some type of amplifier. But either way it goes though, don't go ahead and do it over the air. Get yourself a dummy load. Then that way, A, you know you got good SWR because of the 50 ohm load. And then B, you're not annoying everyone that's actually trying to use that bad. You know what I mean? Especially when it's crowded. So, like this particular one here, this is just a basic 100 watter. You know what I mean? And for most, I mean, you know, just transceivers alone that's under 100 watts, this will do fine. Now, if you're working on amplifier or high-powered transceivers, then you want to go in and invest in a bigger dummy load like 600 watts and up, like what I got underneath the bench. And they can go all the way up to 10,000 watts even, depending on if you're building custom amplifiers, for example, that go up to 2,000, 3,000 watts or whatever. Then you're going to want to go ahead and get a bigger dummy load, and of course that's going to cost more money and stuff because they got to oil fill them and cool them in the way. So yeah, the more bigger, the more larger it is, the more expensive it's going to be. But it's worth making that investment. It's nowhere near as expensive as the other gear that you will need to repair radios. So just go ahead and spend the money and get one. You can get these used cheap on eBay actually, especially if you're watching them constantly and stuff like that, for pennies on the dollar. So don't be the guy that goes over the air that either whistles into the thing or goes at it and, you know, goes testing or whatever they decide to do and stuff like that. It's just annoying. Get yourself a proper dummy load, then no one else has to hear you, and then you're also getting more accurate results as well because you're actually putting the power into a proper 50 ohm load. So I'm going to go and show you one of the big ones that's under my desk that I actually use. It's a, you know, it's 600 watts to 1,000 watts, and that's the one I commonly use. Now if I'm working on amplifiers or something like that, then you would want to get like something like a 10,000 watter or so forth, you know, just so that way you have the overhead in the room. So just in case you're working on a large amplifier, well then you'll be able to work on that large amplifier safely pretty much. So we're here underneath the bench, and this here, what you're looking at, that's what we're going to be paying attention to. And that's a 600 to 1,000 watt Bird dummy load, and Bird does make this. Now what it is it's an oil cooled resistor essentially, and there's a big giant resistor there, and it has oil inside to cool that resistor down, and then you got the heat sink fins and all that on the outside also to help dissipate heat too as well. And this thing can handle 600 watts just like that, or if you put two fans you could be able to actually handle up to 1,000 watts, of course, to dissipate the heat off this thing that actually goes, the power that's going into it. And what dummy load is essentially is the power that comes out from your transceiver. Instead of going out to an antenna, it's going to go into that resistor, and of course as a result, depending on the amount of power, it's going to have to dissipate that heat out of it, of course. But that's what a dummy load is, and that's a proper one for working on transceivers and radios. Now they got ones much bigger, like I said, that go up to 10,000 watts. And the bigger guys are mostly for people that build custom amplifiers that do 2,000-3,000 watts or whatever, and they need a huge dummy load that can be able to dissipate that amount of heat. And of course then they get much larger and more expensive and require more cooling as a result. But invest in a dummy load. Don't cheapen out on a dummy load because it's absolutely required. I hate when people tune their transceivers or their amplifiers over the air and stuff like that. Tune your stuff through a proper dummy load, so that way it goes into a dummy load and it's not being broadcast over the air. So this concludes this video.